Yeah.
We're good.
I feel like it's always interesting to see how people complement each other. And you have this like calming presence, you know, where even just on the way here, like, okay, let's walk slower, you know, because I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, well, let's officially start. Welcome, Avi, to this podcast episode. For the ones who don't know the podcast yet, this is I'm Stella. I'm the host and I'm the founder of the Life That We Deserve and Path Seekers community. And my mission with this podcast, Outside the Lines, is to show people what is possible and how you can create a life that fits you and that doesn't have to follow any norms and rules and guidelines of just like, okay, other people said I should be doing this, so now I'm doing this. And the metaphor that I'm like referring to is when you have a coloring book and you have these lines and you're just like painting within them, right? Because someone else tells you, okay, this is what you're painting now, and then now you just fill this in, and then you're like, okay, cool, but it's not really your picture, it's not really your expression. Like you put your touch to it, but the question that I'm asking is more like what happens when you go outside of the lines and you just do whatever you want and you don't have that guideline anymore and you don't have this, you're just figuring it out, right? And I've had a lot of guests on this podcast already, many of them entrepreneurs, but you were the first one, I think, that is really also focusing on creativity. So I think you are even more connected to this metaphor with the coloring book. And yeah, I'm really happy to have you. So feel free to take a moment to introduce yourself and also let us know why you're here today.
I love that. Thank you so much for having me, for starters. I think me and you have been trying to have a beautiful connection for quite a while now.
Yes.
When you came to Barcelona initially, and I was introduced to you by Francesco, who's a dear friend of ours, also an incredible coach, and really good friend. I remember he said, there's another creative coach in Barcelona, I think you guys should meet and talk and hang out and exchange. And I was just so excited and happy because I think creativity as a word is something that sparks me so much. So for those of you that don't know me and for those of you that are getting to know the stranger for the first time in Stella's podcast, my name is Avi. I'm a creative business coach and I've been in this field for the past 4.5 years, similar to you, also coaching creative entrepreneurs to really express themselves authentically and really not hold back from the truth and the gifts and everything that is within, to face their fears, overcome it, and learn to make money from it as well, because artist doesn't mean you're going to be broke.
Yes.
So that's a bit about me, and thanks for having me.
I love that. No, thank you so much for being here, and I'm honestly so excited about this conversation, and my mind is already like, we need to talk about this and this and this. So I think creativity, authentic expression, making money from art and what you love, like maybe we can actually start there, because the thing is with every coach and with every person in general, you have a story and you have somewhere where you started, right? And then you have certain beliefs of like whether or not that is possible, and then you kind of decide, make your choices based on that, right? And I think for me, I always wanted to do a lot of things, but the main thing was I wanted to become an artist. So when I was like 5 years old, I was like, I want to become an artist, and I also want to be a writer, and I also want to be a politician, and I also want to have my own fashion brand, and I also, you know, like it's saving the world, being a teacher, everything. But artist was like, I think, one of the biggest ones. And I also saw how I struggled being in like an office setup that is not designed for creative people, right? Whereas like, this is your timeline, you know, this is your schedule, this is when you have to produce this. And I think creatives naturally really like to flow, right? And have a lot of freedom and have a lot of like, let inspiration come to me and use it in the moment that it hits me. And so you kind of need to set up things in that way, right? And for me, I did study business. I was thinking for a long time to study art, and I then decided that's a bit risky, right? And like art, you cannot really make money from that, and then you have this like starving artist, like it's always going to be a struggle. And I realized like I want to feel safe financially, I don't want to have to worry about this, and I don't want also to feel like I'm destroying the passion that I have, right? Because if I like to paint, but now suddenly I'm painting to make money and I need to pay my rent, I'm not going to enjoy it anymore. And the funny thing is that once I started my coaching business, I realized that this is not just about art, right? So many people have that, and so many coaches have that, so many other creatives and entrepreneurs have that. Like, I just had this conversation recently with some clients about one of my clients who's also a yoga teacher, how, you know, people start and they love yoga and then they don't love it anymore and they're just doing yoga every day and they're like, oh. And yeah, I think there is a lot there, and we also going to speak about your story and also about how we can actually set up our business and our life and our self-created profession in a way that that doesn't happen, right? That we don't have to constantly worry about money, that we don't have to feel like I'm not enjoying what I wanted to do anymore. And also that I don't fall into this like, I'm only going to do what other people want me to do, right? Because when we talk about authentic expression, there's always this part of, well, this is me and my voice and my feelings, and maybe you like it, maybe you don't like it, maybe you resonate or not, but I'm going to share it anyway, which I think is also part of entrepreneurship, part of art. And I know that, like, we've been trying to have a long conversation for a while. We never actually had it. We're going to have it now.
I love that.
But from what I understood is like you have your own topics with that as well. So yeah, this is my introduction.
Okay, nice.
Feel free to add to that.
Nice, I like that. So you want me to take it on the business side of things, like creativity, or where does it feel most aligned for you right now?
Yeah, I think like, yeah, let's start there and let's see where we're going to continue.
Actually, I'm going to pick up on where you were talking a little bit about in school, what you chose, right, between business and art. Back home in Gran Canaria, where I'm from as well, born and raised on this beautiful island, I was so inspired by wanting to be an artist my entire life as well. And especially nature, which we're in right now, has been such a huge inspiration in my life. So similar to you, at the age of 5 or 6, it was so clear to me that within astronaut, chef, and all these other professions, artist was a dominant one, like really dominant one. But someone I remember at a very young age, I think it was one of my elder cousins, and sometimes people just say things for fun, but they stick with you. They really do, especially at a young age. He said, well, you're gonna have to chop one of your ears off like Van Gogh did in order to be famous, because artists just don't make it, right? Like, how are you planning to make it, and how are you planning to be unique? And yeah, I think the words unique stood out to me there, but also the words artists are broke stood out to me there. So it always became a duality of like wanting to be really, really unique, but also this fear around money and fear around like, am I ever gonna make it as an artist, or am I ever gonna be successful in business? And I think somewhere around my teenage life, and I think a lot of my peers as well, we had to choose in schools, and let's talk about schools later and what's right or wrong, but we had to choose between art, business, history, and I can't remember what was the other one. I think it was art, business, and history. And it felt so challenging for me to have to choose one spectrum or the other. My mom and my dad and my family wanted me to go for business, so I chose that. But my heart was so deeply in the art side of things, it really just wanted to be in art class. So something I did was I went into art class, and I went into business class, but every single week I would find a way to sneak into art class just so I could go paint, just so I could go explore that version of me. And I wasn't so good before having to make that decision, but when I was presented with that decision between having to choose, something kicked into me and I was like, I want to be really, really, really good at art. To the point that even a few weeks into my business class, I left business and I joined art class fully. And I even had a little heart share moment with my family where I was like, this is just not for me. Whatever path is meant for me will come. I will make money somehow, but business is just not for me right now. Art is where my heart is calling me at this age and at this time. But to be honest, if I'm truly honest, I think people should not have to choose between art and business in school. I think that in itself is secluding people's and putting them in boxes and putting them inside the lines, which is what you're part. I don't think you should have to choose between art and business. I think you should help artists, even within art class, to learn about the entrepreneurship and the business side of things. So you're not always thinking, I'm going to be broke. So you're not always creating from a place of fear. You're already crazy. Business is possibility. Business helps artists think about, wow, this is all that I could be doing with my talent.
And business is better when you include art. And this is something I love that you're saying this now, because while you were speaking, I was thinking back of my choices in school because I had the exact same moment. But I would say I had that moment twice. Like the first one was in high school that we also had to choose, and I had like the option between was like the last 2 years of school, and you choose like, it was called profiles. And there was an art profile, there was a language profile, there was a science profile. I never really cared about science, to be honest, so that was out. But everything else, I was like, I want to do this, this, this. And there was like politics, and I was really struggling to choose. But in the end, I was like, well, but art is my biggest passion, so I'm going to choose art. But that was still in high school, so it's like, yeah, I can still play around a little bit, you know, it's high school. But then, when you're like, okay, so what am I going to study at university? That's when I was like, look, art is too risky. I'm going to choose this. And I did business combined with languages and history and politics. So it was like a bit of everything except for art, right? And I went to business school here in Barcelona. And there is this like movie. It's a very cheesy movie with, I think, Channing Tatum, where he's playing a guy where his wife loses her memory. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called, I don't even remember the name. But she loses her memory and she's an artist. And then when she has this memory loss, she goes back to like law school because that's what her family wants her to do. And she forgot that she's actually an artist. And then there's this scene where she's in law school and she's starting to paint again and she's scribbling. And that was me in business school. But not because I didn't care about business, but just because I'm also creative, you know? And I was like, it shouldn't be like, oh, I made the wrong choice going to business school. Like, no, I love business school. It's super interesting. And every artist should know how to do business.
100%.
But I don't want to do just business, right? And actually the first coaching session that I ever had was with a girl who on Facebook was promoting like, hey, I'm doing a training and I need like some free trial clients. And that was while I was studying business, and I was doing a coaching session with her, and the main outcome was I should be taking more time from my creative side. And I felt that this is going to take me off my business path, and like, you know, I need to use my rational mind, and I felt like guilty even to just do what I love, you know, and to just express and be creative, because I was like, no, I should be using my brain more, and I, you know, should be using like a job that is like more challenging mentally and like intellectually. So I have to study this and I don't have time for art, right? And it's, at the end of the day, it's like your business is going to be better if you feel like you can, yeah, like you have time to express yourself creatively and you have time to be in the present moment and you can actually make money of that as well. And yeah.
100%. 100%.
Well, that was an interesting first takeaway. Yeah. And I love also that we didn't plan what we're going to speak about, right? I told you before, I'm not going to, you know, give you a bunch of questions. We'll just see where this conversation takes us. But I'm happy that we already came to this conclusion. So art and business can be combined.
100%. They should be. They should be.
So maybe let's talk more about like what you're doing now and how you got to where you are now.
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, similar to you, I've also had this dilemma between art and business my whole life, and it's so nice to be able to bring them together and to help other people. But how I got to where I am is actually, right, I studied design, industrial design and technology at university, and I was really a rebel. Like my family really wanted me to go study business. My family really wanted me to go, I don't know, support them in their business back home as well, where they have like fashion retail stores. But I just clearly knew that my calling was something related to the visual side of things, like something related to design or art or self-expression. And right after university, I went and worked for social media agencies. I worked for PR, communication agencies in Dubai. Something just felt meaningless in Dubai. Something just felt so less. I guess, well, people have their own opinions about Dubai, and we can go about that some other day at a separate moment.
No, I was just thinking of another friend who had that same aha moment and then went from Dubai to Barcelona.
Yeah, but then coming to Barcelona, I remember I said, I have learned so much from being in this thriving environment where people are just go-getting, that I slowed down and I came to do things from a more soulful place instead of soulless. And soulful for me meant one-to-one. Like conversations we're having right now, coaching, really being able to help people and not just a restaurant get more likes and followers on Instagram, you know? And when people feel fully expressed, when people feel fully like their hidden gift, their creativity has been unlocked and unleashed, and it can even make money, it can even sustain their life. And when that brightness comes into their eyes, that brightness travels into my soul, and it makes me so happy that it's brought me to where I am today, where I just it's not even I want to, I need to help people.
Yeah.
I need to help people because helping them is helping me.
Yeah.
Helping them is helping the child in me that felt like he couldn't make it in art, that he wouldn't be able to make a business, that he wouldn't be able to thrive. So I'm a living, walking example and proof that you can thrive in a creative pursuit. And my clients are becoming living, walking examples of that as well. And I think you are as well, you know? So you have a community, you have a business, you have a podcast, like you're constantly unfolding all the sides of yourself, which is what it's about.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think that's also, I mean, I think Barcelona in general is a very special place for that because you can meet a lot of people. I just had the conversation yesterday with my client Yara, who will also be on this podcast. And she said someone told her Barcelona is like a playground for adults. And I think it's very fitting, right? Because it's like...
I've heard that before, actually. I love that.
And it's true because it's like we are adults now in the sense that yes, we have jobs and we work and we have, you know, we pay rent and taxes and, you know, it's not like we don't have any responsibilities, but we can still do that in a way that is super fun and that feels light. And we can, you know, you constantly go out and you meet people and you're like, wow, that's so cool what you're doing. Like, tell me more about it, right? And then you have another fun event. And I think this is like just such a nice combination. And I think for me also, I saw this big difference because I was in Berlin before I was in Barcelona, and Berlin is also very big in terms of entrepreneurship, but very different too, because even though Berlin is creative and all of this, the entrepreneurial scene there for me was a lot more about hustle, was a lot more about, you know, like the venture capital startup investment thing.
This is part of the flow.
Yeah, exactly. Also maybe for this setup here, right?
Yeah.
We are in a public space, so we're also working with what we have.
Which is great. I think creativity thrives in chaos.
Yeah.
And creativity also thrives in structure. So I think it's finding the balance in that. I think the more we try to get in the way of creativity, the more it gets in the way of us.
Yeah, and this is also something that I think I can see, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I can see this a lot with my clients. I saw this in myself, is that if it's creative people who really like the flow, the only thing that they're missing is structure. And that's when they can thrive, you know, because it's like they have all these ideas, but they don't know how to move forward, right? And they're like, okay, today I want to do these 10 million things, and tomorrow it's going to be these 10 million things, and nothing is really moving, and I don't really see results, and then I'm freaking out. But if I have a plan, right? So I think it's like if you have too much structure, you want the creativity. If you have too much free flow, you also need some structure, and it's like a balance. But actually, another thing.
I mean, we're also getting a live photo shoot happening right in front of us, you know, so I think
I feel like
the environment is just
interesting.
It's super interesting that we're hosting a podcast and we're also, you know, like, anyways.
We're having a lot of things happening around us, for sure.
Which is great. I think life is, I think one of the most important things that I've learned in my creative journey is to not get in the way so much. You know, like we try to control the outcome so much in our lives. We want things to be a specific way. We want to make money a specific way. We want to thrive a specific way. But I think getting out of the way is super important.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I actually, so I had one topic that I wanted to speak to you about, but now I have another one. So I think I'll go with this one first, because I was in a bit of a rush when I met you today, right? And I was like, oh, I'm already late, you know? So I was like really in my head, like, okay, let's get going. You know, I don't want to be late. And then like my good friend and flatmate who also lives with me, he was like, hey, Stella. And I was just really like, no, I don't have time for this, right? And he was like, yeah, can I have like your passport number? Because I want to put you down as my emergency contact. And I was like, yeah, I don't have time for this right now. Like, can we do this later? And he's like, okay. And then I'm like, wait. This is a very nice thing to ask, you know? I was like, wait, you want to put me down as your emergency contact? Like, and I'm just like, I don't have time for this. Like, I was like, sorry, you know, like I actually feel really honored. Thank you. And I'll send you the details later. I really need to go though, right? But it's like, for me, this was such a moment of like, okay, I was too much in my head, you know? I was like focusing on my business and I disregarded the connection and relationship that I have in this moment where someone is asking me, you know, and like basically voicing that like I'm an important person to them, right? And I think this is also why I was like, that's what business is also about, to say, well, let's make sure that I don't lose track of what matters, right? Like besides my target and like I want to get there and I want to get this done and but yeah.
Yeah. I think for us creatives and entrepreneurs, rush can be so addictive.
Yeah.
Because rush is a symbol of I'm moving. Rush is a symbol of I'm worthy. Rush is a symbol of I'm getting shit done. Rush is also a symbol of I'm productive.
I'm important.
I'm important. I'm good enough, therefore.
Yeah.
But something that we have not been taught from a very young age is to slow down. To slow down because everything comes to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most important messages that I'm sharing with all my clients, whether you're a coach, entrepreneur, or creative. Rush is lack.
Yeah.
Rush is fear. Rush is I need to get things done now because I'm not reaching and it's sort of I am late already.
Yeah.
Therefore I'm not here.
Yeah.
I think one of the words of my week, I'm doing this challenge with my Instagram every single week. It's just something that flowed, which is I'm asking everyone what's their word of the week. And for me it's now. This week it's now. Because I've come to realize that when I'm here now, I get to notice those trees over there sort of like doing their little dance.
Yeah.
When I'm here now, I'm actually here in this conversation and receiving the gift that is to be here with you. And everything else takes care of itself. Really, I've noticed something as well. When let's say I'm having a really overwhelmed evening or like a really rushed day, and then morning after, I would rather not have certain calls or certain meetings. I'll wake up that morning and check my emails, and those meetings have disappeared.
Yes.
Those calls have disappeared, and I'm just like, where did that come from? How did life love me so much that they really wanted to take care of me and wanted to provide something like rest and flow to me and got in the way to take care of me.
Yeah.
And in those moments, as a creative or as a business owner, where we feel like we have to do everything by ourselves, I remember a very big truth, which is I'm held. I'm held by something bigger than me.
Yeah.
And that bigger thing than me wants me to rest, wants me to face my feelings, wants me to slow down, wants me to receive the abundance that's out there.
Yeah.
Only if I don't get in the way of it.
Yeah.
If I don't try to rush it, if I don't try to push it, if I don't try to control it.
Oh yeah. I think control is a really big one as well, right? And when we talk about like receiving, it's like, especially I think as an entrepreneur, it's kind of like these personalities who say like, let me make this happen. Like I'm in control of everything and I'm going to take care of this and I'm going to make this happen like this. And I think there is like always this learning of, okay, I need to detach from the outcome. I'm doing my part, but I cannot force exactly how things are happening, when things are happening. A lot of entrepreneurs struggle with delegation, right? Because it's like, oh, this person is not going to do it exactly the way that I want it to. But it's okay. It's still going to get done, right? It's fine. Like it doesn't have to be the way that you want it to. Maybe it's even going to be better, but you need to trust because you cannot control it, right? And I think in terms of like this, there's a mosquito there as well. I can feel it. We're in an interesting setup. Well, in terms of worthiness, because you also spoke about, rush and lack. Welcome back.
Part 2.
So we're now in part 2 of this podcast recording because we realized that it's fun to try out things, but we can also decide when it's not working and we can pivot.
I love that. I think that's so representative of life as well, actually.
Yeah, because I think it's always this balance. You can say like, okay, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to go through the discomfort. I'm going to work with what I have. I'm going to make it work. But now we also like, okay, when is it time to like face the fact that it could be better in a different setting?
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing right now, where we're not in the park, where we don't have the mosquitoes, where we don't have a half-naked photo shoot happening right next to us and people walking past all the time.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit more of a quiet, relaxed space.
I think it's also very metaphorical of life. Like as you were saying all those things, it reminds me of the journey of a creative trying to make ends meet, like trying to force things as an entrepreneur, but sometimes maybe it's better to have a bit of stability by having a part-time job.
Yes.
Or maybe it's better to have some sort of something to lean on, which is what you were talking about earlier, right? You said, I didn't just want to become an artist because I didn't want something that I was so deeply in love with to have the pressure and the burden of finances.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, pressure and burden, they're also meanings we give to business. Business can be fun if we choose to look at it that way. But it also reminds me of my experience when I was in Thailand. I was in Thailand, and before going, I looked at it as like an opportunity to expand and to ignite my creativity and my curiosity. And like this value of mine that's very dear to me, which is freedom. I think a lot of creative people love their freedom. So I went to Thailand, I went to explore, and I told myself I'm gonna be here for the next 6 months to a year. I'm gonna hop around Asia. Within 3 weeks, Stella, I was done. I was so done. And I think it goes back to that park metaphor.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying this is because when things don't work, have the courage to turn around.
Yes.
Have the courage to pivot. Have the courage to take a job. Ask for support. Get mentorship. Ask for mom and dad for a little bit of just like a leaning shoulder.
Yeah.
But you really don't have to do things the forceful way, the hard way, or alone.
Yes.
Always.
Yes. You have nothing to prove.
That's
right?
it.
Because I think that's the thing. It's like, because a lot of people, and I see that in myself, I saw that in myself, it's like, you feel like you have something to prove. So now I said to everyone I'm going to Thailand, now I have to be here. And now I have to enjoy it. And now I have to prove that I'm living my best life. And it's like, well, if I'm not enjoying it, like, right? But you also don't regret that you did it. You're like, well, let's give it a shot. You never, go back and be like, oh, I wish I'd gone to Thailand. That could have been cool. You're like, no, I went there. I took out of it what I needed. And then, you adjust. And I think I had a lot of these examples. And I really like this metaphor because in entrepreneurship, we speak about the comfort zone a lot, right? And there's this like, oh, magic is what happens outside of your comfort zone. But I once learned this concept where you have the comfort zone and you have the growth zone and you have the panic zone. And you don't have to be in the panic zone all the time.
I've never heard of that. So interesting.
And it makes so much sense because it's like, comfort is maybe the thing that like, it can get boring after a while and you need to push yourself outside of it for a bit. But some people also don't even know what this feels like because they're constantly operating outside of it, right? So it's also like, let's establish what my comfort zone actually is. Let me know how I can go back to it, how I can recharge because I don't need to be pushing myself 24/7 and being like, getting ahead of myself, right? Because it's also like, let's actually enjoy what you built for yourself. And then you can expand that and you can say, well, what is my growth zone? What is something that feels a little bit uncomfortable, but I can do it? And what's a little bit more uncomfortable? And I do it and I see it works. And now this is my new comfort zone, right? But a lot of people say, I think panic zone is where I need to be because that's where I grow. And it's super tiring and exhausting. And it's like, who exactly are you doing it for? Because you're not even enjoying it, right? And,
so true.
And I think this is also when we talk about, especially the whole like part-time job thing, right? Like if
this is hitting home on so many levels, by the way. I love it. I think our listeners are also gonna resonate. Please keep going.
No, and I think it's like something that I also saw for myself, that I was like in this either or thing, right? Like either I'm in a job that I don't like that much and it's giving me stability, but now I'm judging myself for that because apparently I'm not brave enough, right? And I'm just like staying stuck in the stable thing. Or I'm like venturing out on my own and I'm like trying to tell myself that financial insecurity is not terrifying, and I'm trying to tell myself that I'm fine even though I don't know how to pay anything. And then it's like, you can have different income sources, right? And you also can accept help. And I think this is another big one because I had this last week, right? We had like our Path Seekers launch party, which super excited also because we have the video. I just want to show the sticker. We have the sticker now and
nice.
That means it's real.
Nice.
And my dad was here visiting and I was telling him about the launch party and I was like, we've been thinking of doing catering, which would be really nice food, but then it's not really like profitable anymore, and we're making a loss. And he was like, I can pay the catering for you. Like I can sponsor you. And I was really like, but that means that I'm not a good entrepreneur because now I'm just, my dad is paying for the food, but it's not really profitable and da-da-da-da. And then I was like, why not? He offered, let me just like accept that offer and let me be supported. And it doesn't mean that I'm not successful in my business. And it doesn't mean that things are not going to work out because I think we have this thing of like, I need to prove that I did it all by myself, which is a lie anyway.
Did you though? Like did anyone though make it by themselves? Like
no.
That's the thing. Like we feel like we need to be enough in our own body. We need to do everything by ourselves. And there's a lot going on around the world around self-love and self-accountability and self. But you went to a school and you learned something from a teacher. You held a book in your hand and that book in your hand was written by someone as well. So it's all wisdom that's being passed down to you.
And you were born in a setup that allowed you to go to that school.
Correct.
Right?
You were born in a family, you were born by someone, by a nurse. I mean, if you had those blessings, for sure. I mean, I know everyone's been given different scenarios in their life, but you're surrounded by other people.
Yeah.
And your parents are your primary caretakers and they want to support you, but we have this thing around receiving. We feel so much guilt around receiving money, receiving support, receiving a friend's shoulder to cry on. Yeah. Sometimes, especially us coaches, it can be so hard for us to lean back because we're the ones that should be there giving, should be there holding space, should be there the strong one. But
and should have it all together, right? So when you're struggling, it's like, I'm not capable of helping others because it seems like I haven't gotten everything figured out myself yet.
I think we try to make things harder for ourselves than they're meant to be. And I think the park is a good metaphor of that as well.
Yeah.
We were really engaged in this conversation and we were having a beautiful time, but it got to a point where it started becoming a bit challenging to even talk to each other. And you're always presented with a choice in that moment, right? Yeah. Do I want to continue to make it hard for myself and enter the panic zone and really not enjoy this conversation or this venture that I'm doing or this thing that I'm trying to give birth to, something that I'm passionate about? Or can I just choose the easy path for a bit? And that easy path sometimes is receiving the abundance your parents want to give you. It's taking a job. It's taking a step back because that step back is you landing back in your heart and your comfort. But also when you make things easy for you, I've noticed something. You soften and you connect back to your why. You're not operating from not enoughness. You're not operating from fear. I need to make things, I need to be seen. I need to prove something. I need to get to the end of the month. You soften.
Yeah.
When you're in that comfort zones are not valued so much, but they also have huge gifts in them.
That's when you become creative because that's when your mind wanders, right? And I think this is really something that shows like, because we always need to have like certain needs met, right? When you have like the Maslow pyramid of needs and you have like the safety and maybe hunger and all of this, and then you have like self-fulfillment, right? And it's very hard. You can do it, but it's very hard to focus on like self-fulfillment when you don't know how to pay food, right? And I think it's like, it's so much easier to be inspired and to get creative and to have cool ideas and to play around and be playful and have fun when you don't have to worry about like the basic needs, right? And I think it's like, it's tricky because we can also get in our mind to be like, I'm always going to focus on the lack. And you can also say like, okay, I decide to trust, things are going to come, so I'm going to be playful, and that's what attracts this whole abundance. But yeah, I think also there's a lot there, and this is what we wanted to speak about before we left the park, right? The worthiness. And I think a lot of people make it hard for themselves because that's when they feel like they deserve it. If something comes too easy, it's like, I don't deserve this, right? And so it's like we have this feeling of like, I need to go through hard times in order to get to where I want to be because it's worth less if someone just gives it to me.
Oh, I love where you're going with this conversation.
Yeah, like let's say, I don't know, like let's say, for example, I would really like to have a Vespa. And I know I'll get one.
I love that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be so much fun. It's really something I want. And
I want to go on a ride with you. I can't wait.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And now that I'm speaking this out, I know it's going to happen, you know. But I also know that now it's better. But in the past, if someone would have said to me, oh, you want a Vespa? Here's one. I would be like, no, but I wanted to save up for it by myself. And I wanted to wait months until I get there. And then I could say, I did it by myself. Now I have this Vespa, you know. But why not? You know, if someone comes and they say, well, I have one, you want it, why not take that? But it's tricky. And it's like, it's all this resistance that we have inside ourselves, right? And I think this is also something when we come to somatic coaching, right? I don't actually know if you do that with your clients.
For sure.
Right? Where's the resistance in my body? And I had one of my clients telling me like, yeah, so I had this offer for a freelance project and it sounds really cool, but like, she was uneasy, you know, because she was like, this came too easy. So yeah, I'm curious about your thoughts because I feel like there's a lot there.
You know, actually, worthiness is a word that I did not have a relationship with or did not fully understand, to be completely honest with you. Until a couple of weeks ago, I had a conversation with someone around that word, worthiness. And it clicked for me really deeply that day that a lot of the things that I did in my life were in order to feel worthy of love. Because maybe a part of me did not feel loved, right? Let's say, for example, parts of me did not feel loved, so I became good enough at business or good enough at really going the extra mile and pleasing my family or pleasing, like doing the dishes and doing extra things, or like in my previous relationships, like in order to feel worthy of love, I would cook extra, I would clean extra, I would take care of my partner extra, become that sort of caretaker, because on a base level, I did not feel loved, or I did not feel like that person would want to stay with me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't love myself fully. I didn't love that lazy side of me that maybe doesn't want to do anything. Or I didn't love that part of me that just wanted to chill and not always be providing and always be doing things in order. So like we associate giving in order to, if I give, I'm worthy of love. If I hustle, I'm worthy of money.
Because I'm useful for someone.
That's it. If I clean the dishes, I am worthy of this. It's always like reciprocal. But then, is that truly love? It's conditional. You're doing things to be stuck in a loop around like...
And you can get frustrated if then you don't receive what you wanted.
That's it.
Right? So it's like, okay, maybe I'm not comfortable receiving something just because, but I'm saying, well, now I did this, now I want that, and now I'm not getting it. But I think it's also very interesting, and I'm starting to see this more and more, like the psychology of coaches, right? Because people who coach are the ones who really like to help other people. Right, and I can often see, and I really wanted to speak about money as well, and being worthy of getting paid.
Let's do it.
Getting paid well, getting paid for what you want to do, getting paid for what you love, and I see this with many coaches, especially that it's like, well, I'm out here to help people, but I don't really want to get paid for that, because first of all, I would feel selfish. If I say, oh, I charge a lot, now I'm selfish. And now I cannot really uphold this image of myself that I created, that I'm just helping everyone, right? But also, and I don't mean this in a bad way, right? Because I think most coaches are beautiful, wonderful people, and it's amazing that they want to help others, right? But it's often at the expense of their own needs, where it's like, it's so ingrained in like, okay, I'm making myself useful for people, I'm helping others, and then I feel good. But can I also feel good if I didn't help anyone today, and if I only put myself first and I only took care of myself, which is financially, which is taking rest, which is not hustling, which is not going the extra mile, and just doing things that I love doing, right?
I have something to say about this.
Tell me.
I feel like it's selfish not to charge for your program or for your services. And I think it's truly selfish to do that. And this is super disruptive, what I'm going to say, because sales is not about you. Money is not about you. Your service that you've created is not about you. It's about the other person. Let me put you in this environment. I'm a coach and I want to serve someone. How is that person going to show up to a coaching call or a coaching program if they've paid me 0 versus if they've paid me 10,000 euros?
Yeah.
If they've paid me 10,000 euros, which might be for a lot of people their full savings, or sometimes even having to go into their credit card or what, ask mom and dad, they are really going to show up, but not only just show up. Within the month or the 2 months or 3 months that they're committing to working with you as a coach, they are really going to transform on a big level.
Yeah.
Because 10K is not easy money.
Yeah.
Right? But zero is really easy money. So you not charging them is not even about you. Yeah. It's not even about like, oh, I shouldn't charge them because that's selfish. Actually, you not charging them, it's selfish because you're not letting them grow.
Yeah.
You're not allowing them to fully grow. Your service is not about you. Your service is about the other person.
I think.
And letting them flourish.
And I love that you say that. And I think there are a lot of things that every coach goes through, right? Where it's like you suddenly realize like the more people pay, the more invested they are, the better results they get, the more they're going to be happy with this as well, right? And I think a lot of also coaches who went through that say that you can have very low ticket prices and very annoying clients also, right? Who maybe don't see the value, who will argue with you. And then as soon as you start charging more, you only attract the people that really see the value, right? Because also someone who doesn't see the value is not going to pay that. And that's also fine, right? Because maybe it's not for them. I think the only thing that I see here is like, because 10,000 euros might be a lot for someone, might be not a lot for someone else.
I agree.
And might be completely unattainable for someone else, right? And I think this is, for example, how I build my business is like I always knew I wanted to have affordable prices, affordable but stretchy, right? And maybe someone, like literally someone told me this week, I didn't come to your launch party because I want to come to your workshop and I cannot pay both.
Okay.
And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that this was like a decision that you make, but I respect that. I'm super happy to have you at the workshop. But I love that these are people that prioritize that and that say like, this is an investment for me and I'm going to come and I'm going to take the most out of it for myself. And for some people, that's maybe 20 euros. And they're like, well, this month, this is my investment into myself, right? And I think it's also a lot about how do we spend money and we spend it with intention. And if for me, 20 euros is a lot and I'm like, this is a conscious decision to invest in myself and my personal growth and I'm going to show up for that, amazing, right? And I'm really happy to create these spaces as well. But at the same time, I see a lot of coaches who are like, let me only focus on that. I only want to create these like 10, 20 euros donation based for free so that everyone can join because maybe some people cannot afford the 10,000 or the 2,000 or the 500. But yeah, you're leaving a lot of money on the table and you're essentially not happy with yourself and what you're doing, right? And I think this is another thing that as a coach, we have the responsibility to create the life for ourselves that we want other people to have. Because otherwise, how am I going to help you get there, right? How am I going to have the credibility as a coach to say, hey, I'm going to really help you create your dream life. You should just quit your job. I mean, financially, it's probably not going to work, but you're going to have a lot of fun. No, like I need to be the example to say, well, this works, right?
100%.
So I actually have a responsibility not only for myself, but also for my clients to say, well, it does work. Trust me, I did it for myself, and now I'm going to help you.
Yes. I think it goes back to coaching one-on-one, like the basics of it, which is lead by example.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to be anything in this world, but it's elevating you as a coach or as a service provider or as an entrepreneur is elevating your client because you are a mirror of your client constantly.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've shown up to so many sessions where I'm going through something and I'll coach my client and they're going through the exact same thing. And just listening to them, it was a coaching session back to me.
Yeah.
But we're all going through the same thing and we're all working through the same situations, feelings, emotions, blockages around money. And I think the more we do all the work on ourselves, the more we are moving our clients and shifting them from fear to trust or fear to love or from lack to abundance, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it starts with you.
Yeah.
But
how do you do that? Because obviously this is like, you know, from fear to trust, fear to abundance. That's obviously something that, you know, I think you're speaking a lot about also at the moment. I've seen, you know, things that you share and like you're hosting the masterclass next week, which we can always put the recording, the link to the recording in this podcast if, you know, people want to watch that. What would you say are like the biggest things that help people move through that or the biggest things that block them?
I think before you even understand what moves you and what blocks you, I think first you need to understand where you are right now. What is your state of being right now? So in order to understand if you are currently in fear or in flow or in fear or in trust, you need to understand what fear is. Fear is a lack of presence. Fear is rush. Fear is scarcity. Fear is worry. Fear is doubt. Fear is I need to, I have to, I should do, I could do, not enough. All that spiraling is fear. So it's just a little moment for you to check in and go, am I in any of those energies right now? Am I operating from I'm late? I'm not going to reach. If this doesn't happen, that will happen. Am I operating in worry?
Yeah.
And if you understand that your current state of being is, you're just one question away or one breath away from moving into trust sometimes. Because trust, it's important to understand those two spectrums. One of them is fear, the other one's trust.
Yeah.
Trust is love, it's serenity, it's peace, it's slowing down, it's everything is here already. I don't need to rush. Everything comes to me. It's soft, it's gentle, it's easy, it's flowy, it's natural. So how do you move from fear to trust? To answer your question is, all right, if I am in fear right now, first of all, let me acknowledge it. I'm in fear right now. Let me not fight the fact that I'm in it. Let me not resist the fact that I'm in it. I'm feeling worry. Okay, I'm feeling worry. I'm allowed to feel worried. Now, what's one thing that will allow me to soften and move to trust? Maybe I need a walk in nature.
Yeah.
My fear is telling me you gotta pay bills, you gotta make stuff happen, you gotta prepare your masterclass for next Tuesday. But I want to move to trust.
And we can judge ourselves there too, right? Then we're like, oh, but I feel like I've worked so much through this already. Why am I still in fear, right? Rather than just saying, okay, so I'm scared right now. That's okay, right? Let's accept that. And I think the other thing is like we spoke earlier about the conditions, right? Like conditional love. Like I need to do this so that I'm worthy. And I think we have the same thing here, right? A lot of people are looking for like external conditions to say this and this and this needs to happen so that I can trust. This and this and this needs to happen so that I can relax, right? This is the amount of money that I need to have in the bank account. This is the amount of clients that need to message me to say I want to work with you. And if that's not happening, I don't feel safe and I'm not going to trust, right? And I think this is one of the biggest learnings, is to detach that mindset from external factors.
Yes.
And I think for me, there's one of the biggest moments was it was like 2-3 years ago. I was still working in a job in Berlin. I was here in Barcelona, but it was a remote mental health startup, you know, like very connected to what I wanted to do. I just started my coaching training. I was like, wow, coaching is so cool. I really want to take more time for that. And I also had like my work at university here, and I was like, I want to, you know, be part of that more, but I'm definitely going to keep that job because this is what gives me the financial security, right? And then something happened that we had this conversation and we realized like, okay, priorities are elsewhere and it doesn't make sense for me to stay in that job. And suddenly like my biggest stable income source was gone. And then in the same week, I was also moving out of my apartment and I didn't know where I was going to go afterwards because I was going to be gone for summer. I had put all this stuff in the storage unit and then everything was, you know, breaking away. And I had zero idea what was going to happen. I didn't know what I was, you know, going to do, how I was going to make money, where I was going to live, like nothing. And in that time, I was working with a coach who gave me like a breathwork exercise.
Ooh.
Breathwork to establish safety. And it was so interesting. And we're actually going to host one with her at the end of this month. So
I'm
I'll share,
for sure joining.
I'll share the link, yeah.
Please.
Because this is why I was like, more people need this. Because she sent me the recording and I've been like listening to that again and again, you know, because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, let's establish safety in your body. And let's focus on, you know, how do you feel safe right now, where you're at, like in this moment.
Every entrepreneur needs to be at this event.
Yes,
I know it's going to be a huge success.
Yes.
Everyone entrepreneur needs to be at this event.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurship is something that challenges your safety so much.
Yes.
And I think everyone needs to come back home and feel safe in their body so that they can move from that place of trust and safety. Yeah. I love this.
Yeah,
keep going.
Perfect. This is already, we're going to plan it.
We
don't have the date yet.
Let me know what help you need and I'll share it in my community as well.
Amazing. Super excited now. And also because actually, and I think every entrepreneur knows that like, you know, entrepreneurship is a huge fuel for like personal growth and all of this, right? Because you really understand how I manage myself is how everything else unfolds around me. And I think that one of the biggest things is definitely dealing with uncertainty, right? And just being like, it's okay, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to be fine. But also in general, I was like thinking about, you know, why do people not quit their jobs if they're unhappy, right? Not everyone has to quit their job. If you love your job, perfect, right? Yeah. But a lot of people are like, well, I wish that I could do my own thing, but I'm not going to. And I think it's because we have a lot of bad examples of entrepreneurs who are very stressed, right? Who are constantly not sleeping, not taking holidays, constantly speaking, thinking, worrying about money. And people have seen these examples and they're like, well, that's not what I want. And that makes sense, right? And I think that for me, I came up with this kind of comparison a couple of months ago where I was like, let's say here, this is your normal full-time employed job. This is your level of happiness. And then here we have your ability to deal with yourself, your emotions, uncertainty, and taking responsibility. And if this is low, entrepreneurship is going to be here. It's going to be worse than your full-time job. And if it's high and you know how to do it, it's going to be here, right? And so I think it really depends on you and how you manage yourself, whether entrepreneurship is going to be cool or not. And then if you don't know how to do that, I would say stay in your full-time job because it's going to be less stressful. But obviously you can learn how to do that. And I think we all learn this, right? It's not like, okay, now I know how to do this, now I can have my business. It's like, no, you learn how to do this over time and you always go deeper and you have like new challenges and you think you figured it out and then it's coming back, so.
Yeah, I think it's a very sweet dance, entrepreneurship. I think also creativity, expressing yourself, putting yourself out there. It's, I'll give you an example from when I first started coaching to where I am now. When I first started coaching, I thought I was very in La La Land. I thought I could manifest my way into abundance and really make things happen from like a very open place. But you know what? There was a lot of divine guidance that I was receiving and action steps that I was receiving that I didn't feel courageous or brave enough to take, right? So I think it's the sweet balance between leaning back and receiving information from universe or from your higher source of creativity, and also taking action.
Yeah.
Yes, you do live in a spiritual realm, but also you live in a material world. And I think balance is so key. Yin and yang, hard and soft.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is not always about leaning back and being soft. I think a lot of people, when they come to talk to me, they're like, yeah, Avi, it sounds really nice, all this trust stuff and being magnetic and leaning back and all of that. And I'm like, yeah, it does sound really cool, but I'm not just saying just do that. I'm saying use that energy of flow and move.
Yes.
Move with that energy instead of moving with fear.
And also, don't make it too big when right now you don't have that trust, right?
Yeah.
Because it's also, you can get into this thing like, I'm only going to take action when I feel like super aligned and trusting, right? And then it's like, okay, so if I'm not feeling it today, I'm going to do nothing. And I think that like also the reason why, you know, we get ahead is because we take consistent action. And then if I'm in my job that I'm employed, I'm not going to call my boss today and be like, yeah, so today I'm not feeling like 100% aligned, so I'm not going to do my job. No, like I'm going to do my job anyway. And this is what builds the results, right? And I think this is also a really big learning to say, yes, of course, I'm always trying to establish this mindset, but if I don't have it right now, I'm just going to continue going.
Yep.
And then the results speak for themselves, right? And I saw this post today on Instagram of a coach who's like making more than like $50,000 a month, right? And she said, worthiness is not the problem why you're not making the money you want. Not taking action is the problem, you know? Because if you're just sitting there and you're like, okay, I'll wait until I feel worthy, and then maybe things will come. It's like, okay, but you know, you also need to do your part. So it's a mix.
Yeah, I completely agree. And honestly, I know that before this podcast, you said one of the questions you like to ask people is, what would you have told a younger version of you? And something a little bit controversial to what you're sharing here, but also like maybe it aligns as well,
I don't mind at all.
Is energy. I think something that I didn't understand from a very beginning of my entrepreneurship journey is that you need to learn to listen to your body. You really need to learn to listen and dance with your energy. If there are days where your body is feeling stiff, tired, give yourself some extra time, because anything you try to do from that place is forceful and fearful and out of lack, right? So something that I really struggled to give myself permission to do in my early entrepreneurial journey was to rest on a weekday, or like to take a few hours off, or to cancel a meeting that did not feel aligned at all because my energy was not aligning with it. Like I would do a lot of the things out of wanting to prove something, or out of to really wanted to follow the structure of a business model, like 9-to-5 model where you gotta hustle, you gotta prove, you gotta make results happen. But entrepreneurship is a very different game. And I think the most successful entrepreneurs listen to their body.
It's trusting your intuition.
Yeah,
no?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, no, I have this a lot. Like even when I set meetings or something, you know, I'll be like, what time feels good, you know, and then I propose that. And then it's something that people don't learn, right? And it's something that we need to pay more attention to. And I also work with another coach, also really great coach, and she does a lot about money. And she really also taught me, or us, like we were doing a group program, to dance with whatever is happening, right? So like, okay, you have frustration right now, then you don't need to dance and be like, yeah, I'm so happy, because that's like gaslighting yourself, right? It's like not being honest with yourself, not being authentic and pretending that you're feeling different. And she's like, use that frustration. You're mad, you're angry, you're scared, you're like annoyed, you're impatient, use that. And be like, okay, now this is how I feel, and you dance with that and you release that, right? And I think it's a lot about acceptance. And another thing I also wanted to still speak to you about is this whole topic of authentic expression. Because we mentioned this a couple of times now, and I think this is so important, especially as a coach, because first of all, you want to help your clients with that. And secondly, you also want to attract the right people, right? And I think a lot of people try to pretend there's something else, try to make things look better, or look a lot at like, what are other people doing? Let me do that because it seems to be working. And they lose also their own essence and intuition, and they stop showing up authentically, right? And I think, I don't know what your experience is there, but I think it has a lot of power.
Authenticity is a word that's so close to my heart, and I think you've brought it up with the right person. I think authenticity is deeply knowing yourself, and now, that sounds really vague, but deeply even knowing the parts of you that you're rejecting that really need to come into the light. Like a part of me that I have rejected for a very long time is my softness, right? Like in a hard world, in a field which is entrepreneurship or being a coach, where you need to make things aid, you need to be the best, you need to this, that. In entrepreneurship, you're constantly trying to move up a ladder, right? Or I think in business and in society as well, you're constantly moving up and down a ladder. But I think if you remove that ladder for just a moment and you just look at who you are and what your rhythm is and what works for you, you start to deassociate yourself with the rhythm of the world and you start to create your own. And I think that's authenticity, moving at your rhythm, moving at your flow, moving at your energy. But for that, you need to first accept yourself. You need to accept the fact that you're not someone that likes waking up at 6 a.m. You're someone that likes sleeping a little longer. And maybe you are not someone that likes to work till 9 to 5. Maybe you're someone that really thrives when the noise of the day is over and in the evening when there's a candle and you can finally work in your bed when you're cozy in your pajamas. Because something just flows in the evening. Like my best Substack articles are starting to come out really late at night when I'm about to go to bed. After that last shower I've taken, inspiration will pour. I won't judge myself for turning on my laptop and working in that moment because that's authentic expression. That's me allowing myself to be who I am in that moment. I'm not telling myself, oh, I should be asleep right now, or oh, I'm not going to wake up at 6 a.m. tomorrow, because that's not authentically me.
And I think it's really something like, if you enjoy waking up at 6, do that.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Like I'm not that person, and I know that, and I've known that for a long time, so I never even tried that. But like, yeah, sure, if you enjoy doing that, amazing, good for you, right? But I just think that it's like, it's always this like, what works for one person doesn't work for the other. And I think not just in entrepreneurship, but in general in life, it's about figuring out what works for us, right? And not just like, well, this seems to be making this person successful, so now I have to do that. And also just, I think, coming back to the guilt again, right? Like, okay, now I feel guilty because I didn't get up at 7, so I guess I'm never going to be a successful entrepreneur. It's like, also, what does success mean to you, right? For me, success literally means that I can sleep in. That's big factor of success, you know. I love my chill mornings in bed, and so why would I sacrifice that, you know? Because I think another thing is like, you spoke about this ladder, right? And I think it's like, when we define success as like steps that we need to take and higher and like achievements, it's not so much about like, how am I feeling in this moment, right?
I love that.
For me, the fact that we're here today on a Monday, and I was sleeping in, and I had a chill start into the day, and we were living in Barcelona, and we were, you know, in a garden with some palm trees, and then we were like, okay, let's go somewhere else. And like, that is beautiful. No, I don't even have any other meetings today. I have a couple of things that I want to do, but also I woke up today and I was like, nice, actually a lot of stuff is in order right now because I took some time on the weekend. And I could be like, oh, I shouldn't be working on the weekend. No, like, I'm just happy that I'm starting my week on Monday feeling super chill and relaxed, because everything's sorted and I don't really have a lot to do, and I'm just enjoying having this conversation with you.
Yeah, I think I will come back to what you said earlier, like, what does success mean to you? Not just as a general question, but what does success mean to you in the now?
Yeah.
Like, if you tap into what does success mean to me right now, it's being able to fully enjoy this conversation.
Yeah.
What does success mean to me in the now? Being able to make a tea for me and then sit down and do my work from a place of not rushedness, but from a place of deep alignment and loving myself and nurturing. And I think that's, it's the destination versus presence mindset, which is key. But yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many things. Like, for me, another thing is also traveling and spending time with people I care about. So for example, this year I did so many trips, and I saw so many friends, and I'm going to Portugal on Wednesday, and I'm going, you know, to do a yearly reunion with friends of mine from my studies. And I know a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, they're like, oh, I don't have time for this, you know, I need to focus on my business. And I made these choices every time, even if I wasn't even sure how to pay for it. You know, I was like, it can be low budget, I'm going to figure it out, but this matters to me, right? So I'm not going to sacrifice that because I'm not going to like my business anymore. because I feel like I had to give up too much for it. And I think this is also something that entrepreneurs often experience, that it's like, oh, suddenly I don't have time for my friends anymore, like my relationships suffer, maybe, you know, I'm not taking care of my health and I'm not sleeping enough, and then it's not sustainable, and then you start resenting your business. And I think this is also something that I really like to see, how I'm building it in a way that, you know, every day I feel like this was the right choice.
Yeah. I love that. That sweet balance between your business complementing your lifestyle and your lifestyle complementing your business.
Yes.
Not fighting with each other.
Exactly.
It's a complement. It's a dance between them two. You're building one for the other.
And my lifestyle gives me fuel as well, right? Like I'll probably have 10 million new ideas while I'm in Portugal, and I'll be like so ready and excited to execute that afterwards, you know? So
I love that.
I feel like we covered a lot of topics. I don't even know if there's anything else I wanted to speak to you about, but what would you say, also coming back to, you know, you already mentioned a little bit, I wish I would have known this sooner. But also, what would you say were maybe the most challenging things on your journey to get you to where you are now?
Oh, what a good question. I think self-doubt cripples in for each and every one of us. And in those moments, phases, days, experiences, milliseconds, whenever it happens, we can get lost in that self-doubt. We can really like go into it and like spiral into it and roll into it like a little ball and let it take us left and right. And I think something that I'm learning this year, which I've learned from the beginning of my spiritual journey, but I'm even embracing with the self-doubt, is to observe it and not become it. I'm experiencing self-doubt. I'm experiencing fear. I am not it.
Yeah.
I am still the bigness. I am still the divine potential. I am still creativity. In that moment, everything can feel like a cloud. In that moment, when you can't pay your bills or things cannot happen and you feel like you're constantly hitting a wall, you're just experiencing self-doubt, and your behaviors and your actions are rippling into that. But just take a step back and experience the thoughts.
Yeah.
Just like literally the way me and you having a conversation, let those thoughts of self-doubt sit next to you and let them just talk to you for a bit. And when it's done talking and doing its thing and panicking and doing all of that, soothe that self-doubt of you and just go like, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Right? But I know who I am.
Yeah.
I am love, I'm trust, I am abundance, I'm flow. And I wish I would have known that earlier, because that would have kept my self-belief intact more moments in my life. And now I know that every time fear and self-doubt and all those feelings come out, it's just a simple question of, where am I? Where am I? Am I operating out of fear, or am I in trust? And take a step back to observe that and move.
Yeah.
Take a step back and observe that and move. And yes, moving from fear to trust is uncomfortable sometimes, because your fear is telling you, hustle, move, grind, believe in yourself, do all these things in order to make it happen. But sometimes it's just a 5-minute walk.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the most challenging thing for your ego, which is, let me go for a dance. Let me go meet a friend. Let me call my family and cry for a bit. And you'll move, because you'll move back from your head back into your heart, and you'll move back into self-belief and flow and trust. And I think that shift, even if it's challenging sometimes, if you can allow yourself to shift back into love, presence, now, abundance, you're already, in a way, winning the game of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And I like how you're speaking about these inner voices, no? Because I really think it's like, a lot of times these voices just want to be heard. And I think a mistake that we can make is that we try to shut them down. We're like, no, I'm not scared. No, I'm not fearful. No, you know, I'm just forcing myself to be happy and trusting. But I think as soon as we listen to that voice and we don't take all of what it says for granted, but we're like, hey, I'm going to give you space to speak, you already take away the power, right? Because it's like, okay, so now you said what you wanted to say. Anything else, right? Like, I journal a lot, so I write all of these things down, right? And then I write down all the doubts, and then I'm like, I see it on paper, and then I'm like, how likely is that really? You know, like, and suddenly it's like, but it needed to be said, and now it's out, and now I see it, and I'm like, okay, interesting. Now let's add another perspective to it. You know?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I can definitely recommend.
Looking at one emotion with a different perspective as well.
Yeah.
Like how would Stella in a positive day and a joyful day look at this? But how is Stella looking at this right now? You know,
Yeah.
like what would me and my trust and flow look at this experience?
Yeah.
And what advice would that version of me give to me right now even, you know? Like I think just a shift is so key.
I write down whole conversations, you know, sometimes there's multiple people involved.
Oh, I love that.
I once did this like years ago between the head and the heart. This was when I was still in Berlin and I was like, I want to move to Italy, you know, and I was
what a
like,
good one.
And it was really challenging because I was just coming back from Italy and I'm like, I'm so done with Berlin. It's so great. And I wanted this more creative, passionate, fun side. And I was like lying in bed, Googling how to be like a travel blogger in Italy. You know, I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go there. And then like my dream job in Berlin came up, which was like working in a venture capital firm, which I really wanted to do. And I was like, oh, but that's the rational side. That's the career side. That's like, I'm going to stay in Berlin and I'm going to work in investment and learn more about startups, but like what about this whole passion, creativity, fun side, you know? And I just realized that like these two sides of me were just not talking to each other a lot. So they were always trying to make decisions individually, you know? And that's where you create this like, okay, I'm doing this, no, I'm doing this, you know? And then I was like literally writing down this whole conversation of them starting to speak to each other and starting to listen to each other and starting to like make decisions together.
I love that.
And I was like, you know, now I just feel also things are going, right? And I think that oftentimes we feel blocked with what we want to do because there is some internal conflict that we didn't solve. And so if we listen to all sides, then it's like, okay, now it's like a team and let's, you know, try and make a decision together.
Yeah. And I love that you look at it as a team. The voices within you are your friends. They're not your enemies.
Yeah.
They're your team.
Yeah. And each of them, even if you don't want to hear it, right? Even
they
the
serve
doubtful
a purpose.
ones, like they have a point also, right? Like if I say, well, I'm going to quit my job tomorrow and then I don't have an income, but it's sure all going to be fine. Like obviously there's going to be someone to say, are you sure? You know, don't you want to like maybe make a plan or something?
Yeah, I love
like,
that.
Yeah.
The ego has a purpose too, or the mind, which is trying to keep you safe at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So many times you're trying to resist the ego. Oh no, you're trying to block my creativity. No, I'm actually trying to make sure you can safely express yourself.
Yeah.
It's like it's like that union.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's like how do we establish safety for ourselves, right? And also how do we evaluate threats? Because sometimes we don't feel safe, but it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, let's understand where that is coming from, right? Maybe like we spoke about authentic expression. Maybe I feel scared of really expressing who I am and what I feel because I've had bad experiences with that.
Yep.
So fair enough, right? So let's try and work with that and then find a different setup to express myself. And I think another thing that I also really saw is like these doubtful voices, they usually come up when it's really important, right? So because if it's something that you've done before, if it's something that you know works, like you're not going to sit there and be like, oh my God, can I do it again? No, like you know you can do it, right? And I think it's also like when you realize like you're so much in self-doubt and fear, it's also just a sign that you're doing something really exciting and something really big. And so I think it's also just acknowledging that and being like, okay, nice, like good for me, right?
Yeah, I'm growing.
Yeah.
I'm evolving. I'm shaping into a new identity. I think fear also kicks in when you're challenging your identity. You know, your identity is being conformed to something that feels safe, and as soon as you're moving your identity into something bigger or different, fear is like, whoa, come back. That doesn't feel so safe. And I think to a certain level, it's okay, right? Growth. But like you said earlier, it shouldn't go into like panic mode because you're forcing things. You're really putting yourself into, I need to prove something.
Yeah.
But certain healthy pushing the boundaries of your identity is very important because then you're stepping into everything that you want to be. And I think you have to do that.
Yeah.
It's a little game that you have to play with your fears as well. Like, okay, I see you coming.
Yeah.
But we want this for our life. So let's crack a little bit the surface of the fear and expand bit by bit and expand bit by bit. And
I heard this metaphor the other day from another coach who spoke about also how much discomfort is good. And she said, imagine you like wash your jeans and they're a bit stiff, you know, because they're just coming out of the washing machine, so they're going to be a bit uncomfortable. But you know that when you start wearing them, it's going to get better. Or imagine you're buying pants that are just like 3 sizes too small, and they're always going to be really tight and uncomfortable, and you cannot really move, right? So like, which one is the one that you'll grow into, and it's a good step to take right now, and which one is just actually too much right now, and you're not doing yourself a favor.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Wow. Do we have anything else that we need to speak about?
Feels like a good close for me.
Yeah.
I feel like, just to summarize, a lot of the conversation was around like not having to push your boundaries so hard in order to be your creative self. I think sometimes finding comfort and balance is also key.
Yeah.
That's what I'm taking away.
Yeah. Me too. And I love that we had this situation that we were like trying to make it in the park and in this like
even the way we met today,
setting.
rush and slow and like, you know, force and flow.
And then we're like, never mind, you know, like let's do it here, it's chill. And I don't think I have anything to add. It was a really beautiful conversation. Thank you so much, Avi. I'm really glad that we had this.
Same. And in person.
Yes.
So that gives us an opportunity to finally connect.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Super nice.
And I'm looking forward to many more conversations with you.
Take care.
Aww.